Hello, 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 everyone, and welcome to another episode of Your Next 50. I am Sylvia, and you will notice that the lovely lady next to me is not our usual Jenny Mitchell. Jenny Mitchell is on hiatus, and not for long. I am just wanting to start a sub series of our podcast, and I had this idea to talk about what lies on the other side of fear. And I had a wonderful response when I put the request out from friends and people in different groups that I'm in. And our very first guest on this sub series is a friend, but also one of my coaches and a colleague and another podcast host. And she's just amazing. I just had to have her on here. Welcome, Carolyn Partridge.
Thank you, Sylvia. I'm so excited to be here.
Carolyn, in the fashion that we work here on Your Next 50, the way we do things is rather than me read your bio, tell us a little bit about. Well, first of all, I'll let everyone. You are far away. You are in Australia, while here I am in Montreal. Uh, what do you? We were talking about your business title, and you started laughing. Tell us, what do you do?
Yes,
Who are
yeah.
you?
I love this question. Thank you, Sylvia, because it's been a bit of an evolution. But really, what I am is a business alignment mentor and hypnotherapist. And so let's get rid of the jargon. What do I actually do? Basically, I help people to build businesses that allow them to live out their purpose and create their version of success in their life. So I'm a little bit obsessed with this idea of success and what it actually means to each individual rather than necessarily some monetary goal or some particular milestone, but actually day to day what it means to look like, to look like and live in your success. So that's really what I do. I work with mainly women. As you said, I hail from the east coast of Australia. And yeah, I really get fired up by this idea of uncovering what is specifically success for us. And I do that through tools such as human design, hypnotherapy. There's
Mm.
a few tools on my tool belt, but really ultimately so that you can live a life by design rather than by default. So,
I love that. And for those of you who don't know much about human design, I think we'll have to get Carolyn back on with Jenny. And I am what's called a generator, an emotional generator. I believe Jenny is a manifester, and that is quite clear. And what does that all mean? We're going to leave that for another episode. But if you're interested, go look it up. It is really Carolyn and did a session for me where we delved into my human design, and so many things make sense. And then, what you were talking to me about, Carolyn, was, well, in your business, that means, when you're putting out content, you could do it like this instead of like what everybody says, right? Because all the business gurus are saying you need to have a funnel and do it this way. You need to be consistent and post 5 times a day on all your channels, right? It's in that voice that I just made, right? They all they all talk like that. But isn't that so, that is so that's so true. It's so true. So I
yeah.
really appreciated that session. Um, so Carolyn, I had asked her, I said, so Carolyn, what is your fear? When we're talking about on the other side of fear, what does that mean on the other side of fear? Well, you know what? Everything that we desire is on the other side of fear. If you run a business, your success is on the other side of fear. But too often, and Carolyn and I both work with women, too often we hold ourselves back, no matter what stage we're in. Prior to talking with Carolyn, I was telling her where I am in my business and my evolution, and I'm like, oh my gosh, the fear is coming up. That it's always there, but when we push past it, or not even push, because I don't like necessarily that word, but when we move past the fear, then we move into the success and the alignment. So I asked Carolyn, what will you be talking about? What fear are you going to be sharing with us today?
Yeah. So this is so amazing because it really got me thinking about fear and how that's shown up for me and what has been maybe the thread that has run through this for me. And really, for me, the biggest fear was the fear of being different to other people.
Oh.
And that, yeah, that has been a thread through my life.
Yeah. So how far when you're thinking about this being different, are you
Hmm.
going back to in your 20s, in your teens, or you're going all the way back to when you were a kid?
I think I'm going all the way back to when I was a kid, which makes
Oh,
sense, right? Because that's when
yeah.
we build our programming. So I think for me it was right back. It's from probably as early as I can remember that I felt like I was different to other people, but I gave that the meaning of bad different
Right.
rather than good different.
Well, because don't we just want to belong? I mean,
Totally.
we want to
It's the
connect
basic
with
need.
people,
Yes.
and we both have young children, and I have girls and a boy. You have two girls?
Yeah.
Two girls.
Yeah.
And they want to belong. They don't want to be different. And they see, I mean, everyone who's got children will resonate with this. You know, our children, they see right away who is different. But it is the parents and the adults who make meaning of those differences and share them because the children don't, they see differences, but they don't attach any meaning to it. But
Mm.
perhaps you did. And I don't know, does that come from perhaps parents or teachers or the adults in your life?
Yeah, I think it came from a myriad of different people and places and experiences for sure. I think some of it was that I experienced things that other people hadn't experienced, so I felt that made me different.
Mm,
And
yeah,
and then I definitely think that, I think about it now, even with my own girls, like, as parents, we help our children label things, we help them understand
right?
things, we
Yeah.
help them just move through the world. And in doing that, we create boundaries and we create understandings for them. So there was probably so many things that kind of led me to that decision that I was.
Mm. It's like my dad, I remember, he was drawing or coloring with my one of my daughters many years ago, and she was doing all these colors and going outside of the lines, and she was just having so much fun. And then here's grandpa telling her, and he's an artist, but he was telling her, "Darling, you should, honey, color in the lines. Why are you going outside of the lines?" And I walked by as he was saying that, and I was like, "No, let her color outside of the lines. We don't need the lines. You're an
Yes.
artist. You should know that. Like, don't box yourself in." But we
Yeah.
do. So, what's a story? Like, what's one of the memories that you have of being different?
Yeah, I love that. So many like go through my head as I think about that. Um, oh, like where do I even go? Um, I think one of the memories that really comes to me when I think about this is the I have a memory from very, very young where I was with my parents. We were out with a group of people. And my parents had me quite young, like they got married quite young and had me quite young. And so I remember often being in rooms that were full of adults, and I would be the only child in the room. So already there was like something different,
Yeah.
you know? And so, and I was loud. I was chatty. I always wanted to be talking to people. I loved to give people my opinion, which now I fully understand is part of my design, except that I actually need to be invited to give that, that opinion. And so I was really loud. And I remember people saying things like, "Oh, she's really loud," or "She's really talkative," or my parents saying like, "Just tone it down," or
Mm,
you know and so it was just all those little things which were meant in like with the best of intentions, but I could already feel a difference, and then that just reinforced that piece. And it's interesting that you talk about coloring inside the lines, because I definitely feel like I lived the first 30 or so years of my life very much inside the lines,
Mm,
like
yeah.
very much by that creed
By the
of,
rules.
yeah, exactly.
By
Like
the
just talking.
rules, right? And one of my favorite hashtags is no rules. There are no rules, but there are rules in society, in the workplaces. So, what was your, following the rules? Where did that lead you through high school and perhaps university? Like where were you being?
So I built this beautiful relationship with the rules where from the outside I would follow them,
Mm,
but I would always have something that would push them, that would push the boundaries. So there was a lot of travel to third world countries in my late teens
okay.
and early 20s. I lived overseas. So it was like in the rules, but it was pushing the boundaries. And so I was always testing those boundaries. I went to university actually and then dropped out again, pushed the boundaries.
Okay.
But then I went into my career. So I had a 15-year career in healthcare. And so I followed
In
the rules.
healthcare. Oh, this is something I did not know that. I did not know
Yeah,
that.
so I was a frontline paramedic
Ah,
for
yes.
15 years and then eventually moved into frontline management. And so that was my life pre being in business.
Yeah.
So that was very much follow the rules. And there were a lot of rules, of the way that that was done. But in my personal life, I started to really explore pushing the boundaries of those rules. And so by sort of the end of my 20s, I was pretty sick of the rules. And I think there's a real energetic change that happens around the age of 30. And I definitely
Yes.
felt that change. And at the age of 31, I actually divorced my husband, 2 little kids, and fell in love with a woman.
Well, yes.
Couldn't have possibly broken the boundaries any worse
Eh,
or reinforced that I was different.
that you were different. Yes. But allowing yourself to move past the fear. That I mean, that is a big one. We talk about that a lot now, and especially, much more so now, I would imagine, than even 15 years ago. I don't think that was 15 years ago.
No,
You're,
no,
that
it
was
was,
not too long ago for you.
yeah, yeah,
So, was there fear in that in the divorce and meeting
so much
someone new? I
fear,
would imagine. I just yeah.
so much fear. And I guess that's probably why I remember standing in the spare room of our house, and in there I had like an exercise machine that my beautiful ex-husband had bought me for my 31st birthday. And I was feeling really unfit. I'd had 2 girls in quick
Mm,
succession. We'd had health issues. I'd had health issues. And I was like, I have to get healthy. Like, I want to feel better in myself. And so every morning I would get up and I would do some exercise before I got ready for work. And my girls, this one day, obviously decided that they needed to be right near me. And so I have this photo of them sitting on 2 chairs. So they would have been 4 and 2,
okay.
sitting on two
Little.
chairs, and they're waiting for breakfast, really. But mum's currently exercising. And so I have this photo and I'm exercising and they're sitting on these 2 chairs. And I remember in that moment thinking to myself, I would not want my life for them.
Mm,
I'm unhappy and living in fear and following the rules and just doing what I think I'm supposed to do.
yeah.
And but I'm teaching them to break the rules, to do things differently, to
Mm,
live their best life. And that was the day that I went, wow, like I have to change some things. And I did. Over those next few months, lots of changes happened. But I
mm,
remember that day. I'll never forget that day, because I really just honestly thought to myself, okay, what do I need to change right now so that I'm actually living my best life and I'm the best version of me, so that I can actually show them and teach them how to do that for themselves. And I guess that was the day that I decided that it was more important to do that than it was to live in fear. And
Isn't yes.
I think that's something that people will resonate with, like getting to that point, that edge of
Yeah.
the cliff, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I have goosebumps, Carolyn, just, because I think many of the listeners will resonate with your story, and that, needing our children are such like we're role models to them, isn't that? And when so much
Mhm.
of what we do, we want the best for them, but how often do we not show up, in the way we want for
Yeah.
them, but they are watching our every move. Like,
Yes.
that's so
And
profound.
yeah,
Mm.
and they are like, they're not listening to what we say, they're watching what we do. And
Yeah, always.
that was yeah,
Yes.
and that was what I realized. I was like, "Okay, so these beautiful children are watching what
Mm.
I'm doing,
Yeah.
and what I'm doing is not living my best life. Like, it's not my version of what I want my life to look like." And in the end,
Mm.
it's that this piece that we often talk about where, you know, I can't be the best for them if I'm not being the best for me. Like, I had to come first. And that
Yes.
wasn't just by, exercising each morning or taking a bath sometimes. Like, I had to radically take responsibility for what I wanted my best life to look like, because it could be over tomorrow. Like,
We don't know, do we? Yeah.
no
We
idea.
we do not know. We do not know. So what were those steps? I mean, we talk a lot, not we talk, but the society, I think culture talks a lot about self-care, but what I'm hearing from you is that this goes, actually, if I love myself, how will I show up? What actions will I
Yeah.
take?
Yes.
When Jenny and I talk about that a lot, if I really truly love myself, what would I do in this situation? And that sounds like that you got to that point.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it was a series of small kind of, steps, and that can be the way that it
Mm.
happens. It's the little pieces that become the catalyst, and then you look back and go, "Oh, wow, what's changed there?"
Yes, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's interesting to think back on that time, because I think up until then, I had always defined myself outside of myself. I was the mum or the sister or the daughter or the wife or the paramedic. Like, my labels
The
existed outside
labels.
of me, and I don't think I really knew much about who I was and who I wanted to be and what drives me. And that's
Mm.
not something that we, like, just discover one day with a light bulb and then that's it. Like,
No.
that's kind of the whole point of life, really, is to go on that journey. But I think I consciously began that journey and began to really think about, like, what do I want this to look like? How do I want to feel on a daily basis? What am I available for? What am I not available for? And that was really when I just started to actually honor that being different was actually the whole point. Like, everybody is
Mm.
different. And that's how this tapestry is designed to work.
Right.
And so the world works when everybody is living in their uniqueness. And
Mm.
so now it's just been a journey. Like, it's so interesting to talk about this now, because that story that I told is about 6.5 years ago. And it really has just been this journey of getting to know myself better and myself more deeply, and then making decisions that align with that. And I think that's why I'm obsessed with alignment and obsessed with success, because
Yeah.
it really is it's something you choose 1,000 times a day. It's not one big choice and then everything falls into place. It's something that you commit to and you choose over and over again.
Mm.
And that is what I did. And it meant making some big moves and, upsetting people and confusing people. And, there was, for a time, a lot of built around all of that. But in the end, like, I'm the only person that has to live with me every
That's
day.
right. You have one life, right? But again, I had this image as you were talking about the labels, right? The mom. I love that when you say, we look outside of ourselves, because I think that's just what we do. Many of us are not trained. I think, we could perhaps come to that later in life where we do this introspection. I see a lot of women my age all of a sudden becoming spiritual and looking for a bigger, they get to this point where there's like, is this all there is, right? The kids are older, they need us less. And
Yeah.
is this all there is? And we've given ourselves so much. But I had this picture of a coloring book with the lines: mom, paramedic, sister, brother, partner, wife, all of these, and then turning the page to you, and there being
Yes.
no lines, and you can create those lines.
Yes. And
Yeah.
so much of that is a erasing of the lines that other people gave you or society gave you. Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah.
yes. Oh, I love this chat. It's such a great chat, and I'm sure those of you who are listening are having your own stories about times that you felt different, or times that you had to make a decision.
Mm.
And perhaps, Carol and I talk a lot about, making decisions with the heart, but we often make them with the head. And that's perhaps, I've made some decisions over my past with my head, and they're not always the ones that bring me into alignment. Right. So,
Yes.
and that's where I see
Yes.
that. And I've known you for a couple of years now, and I've seen part of that journey these last years in your business, particularly because I'm in your groups, and seeing you trying new things. And I was like, what is she doing there? I said, she's doing a lot of things these days. And it's very interesting to see from the outside. And then when I talk to you about it, you're like, oh, yeah, I was just trying a whole bunch of stuff to see what fit me, what was I in alignment with, what resonated with my public. So what I like about that is that it's an ongoing journey. We don't,
Mm.
and life is like that,
Yes.
right?
Yes, and I love to see it like that, like, it's an experiment, like, finding our alignment is actually an experiment, and often we
Mm,
find it by doing a whole lot of things that are not aligned, and this is something I talk to people about very specifically to business because, as you said, we get told, like, one way of doing things, this is how you should have
yeah.
it, this is the funnel, this is the whatever, this is the web page, this
Mm,
is the
yes.
thing, right? And so much of business really is about experimenting with all of the options that are out there to figure out what actually fits you and feels good for you. And so, yeah, I mean, if there's something, I've probably tried it.
Yes. Which is good. I mean, that helps. That serves you in your business. Um, how do you now take what you've learned about this? Because what I hear that you've learned is that being different is actually your special sauce. That is what, you know, it's everybody's special sauce, but you are actually leaning into it. So
Yeah.
I would assume that you take that and bring that into the coaching that you do with your women that in your groups. And I'm sure they all have fears of,
Yes.
different dimensions, different, big ones, little ones. We all come with them.
Yes.
How do you bring them to that other side of fear?
So I think the very first step is for us to acknowledge that we're always going to have fear. Like, it's
Yes.
not something you get over.
I know, but we want it too. We want to say like, I finally got over the fear. Like when I released my company, there was a bit of fear there and I finally got over it. But I was like, oh shoot, there's just another one pops out somewhere else, right?
Yeah, yeah, and it's the same fears that come up as we up level as
Mm,
well. Like, I talk
yeah.
about new level, same devil, you know? If you have struggled, a example is worthiness. So if you have struggled with worthiness in one context, just because you deal with that, it doesn't mean it
Right.
isn't gonna show up in another one or when you up level or whatever,
Yes.
and so yeah, I think the first step is really just acknowledging that it's always going to be there. But then also opening us up to the possibility of working through the deep roots of those fears.
Mm.
And then also looking at this from the perspective of like, where do I want to be and who do I want to be? And am I going to allow the fear to actually be a barrier to getting to where I want to go?
Mm.
I love the analogy that Elizabeth Gilbert uses in Big Magic, where she talks about relegating fear to the back seat. And I think it's a perfect
Yeah.
analogy because it doesn't go away. It still gets snarky sometimes, wants to backseat drive, but it's not in control. It's not running every decision. And
Right. I like that.
yeah, I think I've always really resonated with that analogy. And so I think for me, it's about helping people work through and process that fear, know that it's never going to go away completely, but ultimately to be so committed to the version of them and their life and their business that they want to create, that they have the motivation and the willingness to do the work and step through the fear and take action.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I believe, I see it as using the feminine and the masculine, because if we're just, saying to people, just do it, just do it, just do it, that doesn't make them move necessarily. And that's the very masculine energy, right? The go-getter energy, the just do it, get out of there and get out of your head and do it. Yes, but I don't think that gives us the massive levels of moving, forward. And it's
Yes.
the marriage with the feminine energy, like more feminine, perhaps the introspection, the not going back in the past and saying, why am I like this? But really changing the stories that we
Yeah.
have. And I know you through hypnosis, hypnosis and NLP trainings, where we're rewiring the stories that are in our heads,
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
subconscious, changing
absolutely.
the subconscious stories. We're not even conscious of those stories.
No, no, they're the deep
Mm.
programming that are running us without us being aware. And so that's why it's so important at the early stages to bring up the awareness
Mm.
so that we actually go, oh, okay, that's interesting. I have that pattern. And we have those patterns for a reason. And fear serves the purpose. I mean, the purpose
Right.
of fear is survival.
Yeah.
And I don't love the idea of pushing
No.
through fear because sometimes the fear is actually letting us know that something's outside the boundary of what is okay for us. I mean, if my child was about to get into a car with someone who'd been drinking and they felt fearful, I mean, I'm not telling them to push through that fear and get in the car. I'm saying,
No.
like, listen to that intuition and get the hell out. So it has
Yes,
like it has a purpose.
it
And
does.
sometimes we need to actually look at that purpose and really explore that purpose and take the sting out of the fear by truly acknowledging it and understanding it and seeing where it comes from. As you said at the beginning, we all want to belong. So to step outside
Mm.
of what is normal, what is accepted, that is of course going to have fear with it, but it's working out how we can navigate that and how we can use that to spur us forward and how we can understand the stories that we are creating around that so that ultimately we're able to get focused on that version or vision of success of what it
Mm.
to look like.
So beautiful, so beautiful. When you were going through uh divorcing your husband and then realizing, that meeting a woman,
Yeah.
did that whole process, were you into the NLP at that moment in time, or did that come after?
No, so no,
Okay,
it's
very
so
interesting. Yeah.
yeah, it came after.
Mm.
So mindset work, hypnosis, NLP has been in my world since 2019. That all happened in
That's
2015 to
very okay.
2016.
So
Yeah.
afterwards, so after you've done the work and taking the actions and then building up your toolbox, I would imagine.
Yeah. And like, let's be
Mm.
totally honest, the first probably, well, ever, but the first 12 months specifically of working, and being in the world of hypnosis and NLP was me working on my own stuff. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm still working on my own stuff now, of course, but it was me working on my own stuff. And I would definitely say that
Yeah.
some of the things that went down at the time I mean, I would have handled way better if I'd understood the things I
Right, that was
understood
where
now.
my question was. I was like, "Well, did
Yeah,
that bring you to, saying I need to make these big changes?" But it's just a different you took a different path to get
I
there.
did. I
Yeah.
think I knew where I wanted to be, and so I
Yeah.
took action without really knowing what I
Yeah.
was doing and how I was doing it. And then I got to the point where I was wanting to leave my job. I was having health issues, etc. in 2019, and so I was like, okay, what's going on here? What's showing up for me? And I went back and did a whole lot of healing work, and I carried a lot of
Mm.
what happened in 2016 forward with me. Um,
Yes, I would imagine.
Understandably, yeah, and so
Yeah.
there was so much available to be worked through, and
Yes.
that then really inspired
Mm.
me to be able to help other people work through that,
Yeah.
yeah, and have those tools. So, yeah,
Oh, I love this. What's that? Sorry, Carolyn?
it was a bit of a roundabout
Yes.
journey,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Well, I think there are different paths. I love that. It just shows us that there are different paths to get to where we want to go. One thing that sticks out for me as well is that if you're running your own business, you often think, I need another strategy. I need a plan. I need this to be mapped out. I even said to Carolyn before, I need help working on a program. All of the answers are within us, and it's often not these business strategies that we need when we're up leveling. Like Carolyn mentioned worthiness before, that is one we deal with a lot with women, is that feeling of worthiness, feelings of guilt that you just mentioned, right? No matter, and it affects us, our businesses, even when it's in our personal lives. It's all intertwined. So when I did work with Carolyn a little while ago, trust came up, trust. And she goes, you got to work on your trust. And I'm like, yes, trust of myself, trust of others. But that was, pops up. So, when you're looking at this, it might not just be a business strategy that you need. And that's where this deeper work comes in, and working on the subconscious. Yes.
Yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. Yeah, and I mean, there's a million strategies out there. There's so
Oh,
many
yeah.
ways to do something, and the way that someone does something works for them because it works for them energetically, and they have the stories that support the way that it works. And so, yeah, absolutely. It
Yeah,
all
it's
it
not
all
about trying what they do. And we all done that. We've all have looked at a popular person online and said, "Let me try exactly what she does and
yes.
post similar things," and it doesn't work. All about the energy and all about the alignment. Carolyn, it's been a wonderful chat. Thank you for being so open with us today. I have a last question.
Mm.
What now? How do I word this? What is something that you're afraid of in your life? And I don't know, is it something that you wouldn't do? Like, I know I would never jump out of an airplane. That is a, a fear I have.
I
Maybe
love
I
that.
should. Maybe someone should push me out. But is there something like what's the next step for you?
Oh, well, I jumped out of a plane on my 21st birthday,
Good for
so that one
you.
that one's
You
ticked off the
ticked
list.
off.
Um, I don't I mean, I still have a lot of fears. I don't know that there's one specifically right now that I feel like I need to move
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
through
Yeah.
specifically. I did have a very severe fear of heights. And I
Mm.
did do some work around that because that was something that would show up a lot for me.
I
I
have
did,
that one too, and that's the plane and the heights for me. Yeah,
yeah,
just
that's fair
that's
enough.
all
That's
that's
fair enough.
all together. But
Yeah. I do have a fear of snakes, which living
oh,
in Australia is not
oh,
usual because we have
you have a
so
lot
many
of them.
deadly ones. But
Mm.
yes, that is one thing that maybe one day I'll need to face and move through.
Can do some self hypnosis on that one. There you go. Well, thank you so much. If you want to reach out to Carolyn, what would be the best way people can reach you, Carolyn?
Yeah, so you can just go to carolinelinda.com or find me on Instagram at
Mm.
Caroline Linda Coach, and it's Linda spelt with a Y.
Oh, and I've spelt it wrong here.
Oh,
Did
did
I
you?
in your on our video here? That's all right.
Oh, good.
It is what it is.
Oh,
Well,
good.
thank you. And you've written a book too. You can catch Carolyn's book that came out this past year, and
So many ways to connect. Just
yes.
reach out and we can chat. I love connecting with people. So
And she's got a podcast too that episodes come out every week or so.
yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you for listening, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this series. We're going to be talking with other guests about different kinds of fear, whether it's moving, whether health issues, a whole bunch, lots of things to talk about on this subject. So thank you so much, and we're going to catch you another time. Bye,
Thank you.
everyone.